Right. So that's the trickiest bit. Nancy, I think you would enjoy it. To talk. Well, it doesn't have to be. Like we were just saying, if you stay in one of the denominational houses, you pay a quarter of what you pay. 25 or 30% of what you pay at the other.
Yeah, we're live. So.
To call us together to worship with the words of Robin Wall Kimmery, author of Breeding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants. What happens to one happens to all of us. We can starve together or feast together. All flourishing is mutual. We will now light our chalice.
We come together. We come together without creed. In this free church, we come together without creed, focusing instead on the core values of justice, equity, and compassion, of mutual acceptance of our diverse ways of being, as we seek to connect ourselves more fully with the unfolding truths of life and of our world. We come together in shared conviction that all people deserve a voice in matters of rights of all, particularly for those who, for whatever reason, have been long held in silence. We come together in the stubborn belief that community is possible and that peace is more than a dream. We commit together to affirm in our actions as the inherent worth and dignity of every human being.
Welcome to this place of peace, justice, and hope. In this Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm no matter who you are, who you love, or where you are on your journey, you are welcome here. For those of you joining us online, we're so glad you're with us. And please bear with us, this is our first outdoor service of the year. It's been too hot previously, and so we're still figuring out some technical things. If you are visiting with us today, we invite you to sign our visitor's book. The visitor's book is right there. There's also name tags available. And we also encourage everyone of our congregation. I don't have my name tag on, but please make sure that you grab your name tags even for outdoor services so everyone can recognize each other. If you are visiting and would like to speak to an usher or a greeter about more information, you can do that as well. There's also lots of information about our congregation and denomination available in the basement and also in the living room off of the sanctuary. So please see an usher for assistance. Can our ushers raise their hands? Thank you. We recognize that individuals of all ages and abilities have different needs during services. We have a busy box for all hands, And if you need a fidget or just something to mess around with during service, but please feel free to get up and grab that. Also too, if you just need to get up and walk around, that's fine as well. We understand that sometimes it's not comfortable to sit for the entire service. If you need anything, please see a greeter for assistance. Join us for coffee hour after service. We will be inside in the basement. If you're a visitor and you'd like to be greeted, you can grab a green mug like this. If you are a visitor and do not want to be greeted, then you are welcome to grab another mug. But this just lets us know that you're visiting and that maybe we can greet you or and offer to engage you in an activity. There's also lots of things always going on around the church, including plants to be given away. What do we have today?
Coleus.
We have coleus today. Those are always free to be taken to a good home. I am Paula Dvorak, a member of the worship team. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm pleased to be with you today as our worship leader. As many of you know, Reverend Beth Johnson is on vacation, I believe until the end of July. She will be here for a few summer services, and then we'll return to our regularly scheduled indoor programming in the fall. But a lot of our summer services are outdoor and also led by our worship team. Our music today will be provided by Dennis Egypt, and my worship associate is Ben Dvorak, so this is a family service today. And our tech guru, I don't know where he is, but he's back there, is Alex, and he's the one who makes sure that we can still do streaming services during the summertime. May you each know you are welcome in this house of peace and justice. And may our worship this morning inspire you and touch your heart, mind, and spirit.
There's always a lot going on around the church, and you can read all about it in News and Notes, which arrives in your inbox every Friday. And there are printed copies available if you would like to receive News and Notes. Stop by the welcome desk. Charlie would like everyone to know that there will be turkey casserole available in the church basement after service. And on your way in, please observe the curious mushrooms in our churchyard. Also, our usher Stan is handing out a list of resources from our services last week. I believe those are... We gather each week reminding ourselves of the power and beauty of community to heal our souls, open our minds, inspire us to action through the love that is at the center of our faith. Our financial contributions to this congregation allow us to continue to live into our vision of the beloved community here and in the wider world. We commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do greater good for ourselves and the world. Now let there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. Please join me in the offertory words. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with the people around us, and with all the world.
Before we get started, let's take a breath together. It's such a beautiful day, and we've had such a series of hot, oppressive, humid days. So I want to take a moment just to appreciate being outside, tech glitches and all. Can everybody hear okay? So when we gathered together to talk about our kind of overarching theme for the summer services, something came up pretty quickly, and it was this idea that we really need to be able to care for each other in this time, and that's something that's very valuable and very relevant at this moment. And so the theme that we came up with for the summer, which you may have seen, anyone see our sign when they drive past? It says, "A rebellious culture of care." Does anyone have a sense of what that means? What is a rebellious culture of care, right? It's kind of a packed statement. And we're not used to hearing the word rebellious, right? Like being a rebel with care. That doesn't seem to fit. And so the first thing that came to my mind when we were having this discussion was the concept of mutual aid. So who here has heard of mutual aid before? Okay, a few people. And mutual aid is a phrase that was kind of probably, I think, coined in the early 1900s, so the early 20th century, by a Russian anarchist, of all people, named Peter Kropotkin. I probably did not pronounce that correctly. And he wrote a book called Mutual Aid, A Factor of Evolution. And this book was in response to what many of us are familiar with, which was a growing movement of social Darwinism, right? So taking those concepts of evolution, right, competition, and the only the strong survive mentality, and applying it to our society, right, and our culture and how we interact with one another. So that was one factor that was going on in that time, the social Darwinism. And then Kropotkin said, Kropotkin said that this is not the way that things should be. And so he started talking about mutual aid and this idea that we can work together and that is the best way for us to be successful. And what's interesting is with all things, right, he was not the first one. He didn't invent this concept, right? He may have put a name to it, but this is something that has been practiced for hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? Particularly in many indigenous cultures, where the unit of care is not the family or the individual, but is rather the whole of the culture or society. Everyone is kind of responsible for everyone else. And so it really comes from a lot of those indigenous roots, which is why I opened with the quote from Braiding Sweetgrass. And a lot of these concepts had been, in use way prior to the early 1900s in various forms. People in labor unions, there were things called friendly societies in Europe that there were established, and their goal was to provide care for the community around them. But he wrote a book, called it Mutual Aid, and that kind of became the name for this. And so lots of these types of organizations popped up around 20th century labor movements. So a lot of people might be familiar with mutual aid societies through unions and labor movements. They were often called mutual aid or aid societies. And again, the goal was to work together to provide care in the community. And then further examples were the Black Panthers Party survival programs, things like providing breakfast for children, right? And then also during the AIDS crisis. So one of the big things about mutual aid is that it is separate from the government and those systems. And the reason for that is often the things that we are helping with when we are doing mutual aid are actually being made worse by the government or the systems that are in place, right? So for example, in the AIDS crisis, I don't know how many people, remember at that time, but, the government was actively kind of sabotaging any help, right? And, it was demonizing people, and it was causing more harm than good. And so people had to come together to care for people who were suffering at that point. And so there were people who would provide all different kinds of care, whether it was health care, food, just, social support and someone being there for someone who was suffering. So that was a good example of mutual aid. And then this came up again in like 2020. Anyone, any ideas why it came up again in 2020? Anything? The pandemic, right? So people were like, okay, look, whatever's happening here is not working, and we need to figure out how to work better together. So at that point, Dean Spade, and his book was published in 2020, so I'm assuming he was talking about it thinking about it prior to the pandemic. Wrote a book called Building Solidarity During This Crisis and the Next. Has anyone read that book? Okay. So he talks about basically three kind of touchstones for mutual aid. One is that mutual aid projects work to meet survival needs and build shared understanding about why people do not have what they need. So we're helping people meet their needs, like getting food, right? But we're also addressing like the structural inequalities that lead to that. 2, mutual aid projects mobilize people, expand solidarity, and build movements. So mutual aid is kind of scary to those people in power, right? Because oftentimes it brings together people who seemingly have disparate goals, maybe in the larger scheme of things, but they kind of all recognize like, hey, these kids need to be fed, right? Or these people need clothing. And so it can oftentimes bring together people that would normally not work together or would normally not have a bond. And as Ben pointed out this morning, we were talking in the car, when people work together, right, they tend to bond with each other. So if you're actually doing work with someone, like physical labor, you tend to bond with them. So it's a very powerful thing because when you're working together with people, you often discover that you have a lot more in common than you would have thought, right? And your goals are more similar than you would have thought. And the third point is that, and this all comes from Dean Spade, is that mutual aid projects are participatory, solving problems through collective action rather than waiting for saviors. And I feel like we're doing a lot of waiting for saviors. And, no one is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves, right? And so this is to give us a very basic and very, very start of an understanding of how mutual aid can be helpful. So how is mutual aid? It kind of sounds like charity, right? How is it different from charity? It's different from charity because charities do a couple of things, right? Number one, I was saying this morning, I had a board meeting for a charity that I'm on the board of yesterday, right? Boards have meetings, charities have meetings. They take a long time. Decisions are difficult. They're not very nimble. They're not very quick. They're not able to respond to needs quickly. They're often means tested. So that means people have to qualify to get charitable help. The idea of mutual aid is that we kind of respect that people will give and take as needed, right? And so there's no means testing. There's no, you have to qualify for this. You just come into the community and you give and take as needed. And the other thing about charities is it's often done in a very patriarchal way of a structure where there's, the lead of the charity and they're this benevolent person who's helping people and they're giving money and time and they're doing all these things, and then the other people involved are the beneficiaries of this and they should be so grateful, right? And so it can have this very kind of patriarchal feel to it of I'm here to save you, right? And the idea is that that's not what mutual aid is. Mutual aid is our collective liberation. We are tied up in each other, right? So if I need something, if I have a need that's not met, that's affecting someone else in my community as well, even though maybe they have that need met. And so recognizing that and stepping in. So again, this is a concept that's been around for a long time, but I feel like is especially relevant right now, where many of our systems do seem to be failing us, right? And we're not getting what we need from the structures that are in place. So Ben is going to talk a little bit about some research that he did about a particular organization that does mutual aid work.
Many of you know me. My name is Ben Dvorak, as I was introduced earlier. My pronouns are he, him. And I just wanted to introduce a few mutual aid groups that I recently became aware of as kind of a good example. Because, talking about something, describing it works, but actually knowing one and what it does is really good for, knowing about it sometimes. So I found some groups. One of them is started by Bucky Grant out of Denver, Colorado, a transgender man, and another one by Deb Powers out of Worcester, Massachusetts. Now, both of these groups are actually like fiberworks and fibercraft communities where they get together and have just, time to educate and, share resources for a lot of like clothing repair and, crafting new clothing, making old clothing work again, improving clothing. And it sounds, it's something that a lot of people I know here probably know how to do, but it's a skill that's first of all being lost, but it's very much good for independence as a community that is incapable of, repairing its own clothes, making its own clothes, has to buy from someone, and, that's when you have to buy from the big corporations or whatever, and then that stuff's often made cheaply, quickly, breaks down a lot faster. So these communities, the goal is to create communal care for each other through fibercrafts. And so this provides both a service, as in, you get this knowledge, but it also provides a community. And so these sessions that people attend, they talk with people while they're doing it, and there's a lot of historical precedent for this, actually. So up until recently, a lot of times there would just be, groups of men, women, all walks of life would meet together and just talk while they did this work. And the thing is that this kind of work is more than just, a chore. I think the best word would be, it's revolutionary, because the idea behind reform-based and revolutionary-based, a lot of people think, oh, reform is, peaceful, and revolutionary is getting up there and, fighting. But the better way to think about it is revolution is about something different than the systems. Reform is about fixing the systems. But the problem is when the systems are being actively degraded, or the harm is just too great for us to wait, that's where mutual aid as a revolutionary idea is wonderful. Because, as we said earlier, it can react fast. Because instead of it being, oh, what's the best way to do this? Oh, someone's saying we can't do that because this. It's just people on the ground getting stuff done. And sometimes that's what you need. You need things to happen. And just waiting for a savior, gives more time for, those who are creating harm to do more work. So I think just to end my little spiel here, I think I found a quote from Deb Powers about what they do. And they say, I think knitting is one of the ways we build community, and that's what revolution is all about. It's not about overthrowing a government, it's not about throwing people out of power. It's about building communities of care so we can take care of each other. Thank you.
I don't know why I always put myself after him. Not a good choice. So, as Ben said, this idea is rather revolutionary, even though it's also kind of based. An interesting concept is the idea of a radical. And from math, what is a radical, Ben? Yeah, I'm asking you. I'm asking, oh, you won't do math. It's the idea of the root, it's getting to the root of something, right? So we think of being radicalized as this kind of over the top concept of, being a radical, right? Like the blue hair and the tattoos, and none of that stuff is bad, but that's not what radical means. Radical means coming back to the root of something and figuring out what can we do about this, right? And so in many ways, we're doing a lot of this work. We may not call it mutual aid, but a lot of the work we're doing is mutual aid, particularly with the prison systems. That's something that it's been used a lot. And it's the idea of, instead of I'm working for your benefit, right, or I'm going to help you out of charity, a lot of people when they do prison work are looking at as a mutually beneficial thing, that they're growing and learning from their connections. And also they're involving people that are impacted in the community. So it might be someone who is a person who's in prison, right? Or it might be someone who has a family member or a friend, and they're being asked to be involved, and they're being asked what's going to be the most beneficial thing. So the cooperative nature of it is another piece. Charity tends to say, like, okay, this is what you need, so I'm going to give it to you. In mutual aid, we ask the community, what do you need? What is going to be the most helpful thing, right? Do you just need money? Do we just need to say, like, hey, everybody give what you can, right? And here's the money. Do you need food? Do you need clothing? Do you need shelter? And like Ben said, the benefit of mutual aid is that it's quick. You can gather together people in a moment's notice and say, this is what we need, right? So, if someone is, there was actually an example that I read where there was someone who was arrested, and it was a case where it was a woman who was a victim of domestic violence, and the details of the story were that she had a gun and she didn't shoot her abuser, she shot into the air to scare him away, and she was still being perceived by the criminal justice system. And she was a black woman, and there's a whole history of these types of things, right? But what happened was there was a community that was gathered together for this specific case and to work on these things and to do it in a very nimble, quick way and to just immediately respond to what things were needed at that moment, whether it might be protest, right? It might be support for the family. It might be care or reaching out to the individual who is being harmed. So the other thing about mutual aid is we all have a part to play, and we don't have to be the revolutionary, although we all are in that way. We can use whatever talents we have. So as Ben pointed out, there are lots of individuals here who are good at things like knitting and crocheting and making things, right? And that is a skill that can greatly benefit people who need clothing or blankets or things along those lines. I tell Tim all the time that I'm jealous of him because he has this, very concrete skill of being able to cook that, whenever something happens, like he's just the cook, right? Like he makes the food. There's something to be said for that. There's people that need to go out and protest and, be the people who are on the front lines, but someone needs to make dinner, right? That's an important skill to have. And being able to make it, like maybe you can grow some food, right? Like my dad is the gardener, growing the food. So everybody has a part to play. And I feel like that's why mutual aid is so wonderful, because it can often feel so overwhelming to think about, like, what am I going to do in this situation? You're going to do whatever you can. You are just going to pick something that you are good at and are capable of, and you're going to do it. And that is enough because we're all working together, right? And I think that is a key of it, is that in mutual aid, it's not one person. It's not that savior. It's not that one leader that's going to tell everyone what to do and fix the problem. It's everybody in the community working together to do that. So great examples of this have been after major climate change disasters, like Hurricane Katrina. So during Hurricane Katrina, there were obviously, huge areas that were flooded. People were stuck. So people were rescuing. But also what was happening is there were groups of white supremacists going out and causing harm to people. And so there were mutual aid groups that came together to protect people. And that was their, what they did at that moment. And that was what their strength was. So there are so many different ways. And I know we say this all the time, like there's so many different ways to get involved and you can do anything. And that's true. But I do have some do's and don'ts about mutual aid. So one of the do's is to reach out to groups that are already doing this work, right? Number one, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If someone else is already doing something and doing it well, join with them, do it with them, right? It's okay to just join the group. Don't overextend yourself. Don't feel like you have to do everything all the time. That's how people get burnt out and overwhelmed. So just pick this one thing and do it to the best of your ability, right? Because could you imagine if everyone actually did that? Like if everyone actually just picked one thing that they were really good at that could benefit their community and did it to the best of their ability, it would really, really make a difference in all of our communities. The other thing is to make sure that we're obviously practicing self-care. That's a big one. And also, I think it's very important to remember that it's the whole idea of collective action. And so if we do need a break, or there's only so much we can do, that is okay. And that we're not there to save other people, right? Which I think, in a sense, is a relief to give ourselves a break from that mentality, right? We don't need to be the savior and come in and do everything. We are there to work with other people and to work alongside them in partnership with them. And that goes back to the idea of if people are already doing the work, join with them. Don't try to, create something on your own if it already exists. So I think that it would be good for all of us to kind of take a few minutes to think about skills that we have or things that we could do that might be helpful. So first what I want you to do is we're going to do a little bit of a meditation exercise. So if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, that's okay. If you don't, that's okay too. Ground yourself in this beautiful space. Acknowledge that we are on Indigenous land here in Hinsdale. We are connected to all the people that have lived here previously and all the people who have worked here previously. We are not just independent beings existing in this space. We are connected to everything that ever has been in our ancestors. And take a few deep breaths. And think about what calls to you when it comes to a skill or something that you can do that benefits others and that you could give of freely. And I think it's good to think of something that brings you joy, that makes you happy, so it doesn't feel so much like work. And then I want you to open your eyes. And then for a few minutes, we can talk amongst ourselves about what you thought of or what idea that you had that you might be able to contribute. So talk amongst yourselves. I know that's dangerous. I'll call us back in a few minutes.
Okay, so what are you doing? We protest. We protest.
I was thinking of the idea that, like, even setting up those GoFundMe pages is a kind of mutual.
Yeah, yes.
Because those go up straight away. I just read about one today for other contributors.
Yeah. That's a quick, yes. Yeah, so much, and it's easy to do. Easy to set up.
I know, but I think stuff like that. I was talking about with the sort of crowdsourcing that happened, the garment repair,
Yeah.
garment remaking, and how it might have been the same organization we were talking about, but how people came together to do that, and then they became businesses at their own place.
Oh, nice.
Like they became friends with each other because
Yeah.
they're all doing that.
Like someone in our Democratic organization who did it a couple of times as a fundraiser. And a few people came, not many, I did not. A few people came, and yeah, they had a good time. It's a concept I never even thought of. Get together, fix my own clothes. What?
And then people would bring tools.
Yeah.
Tools together.
Yeah.
I think the
I thought about that right away. That could actually, great idea for them. They could branch out and make other things. Oh, Karen McDowell makes little teddy bears for babies and for kids in hospitals. That's what people are starting. Yeah. And then I think of the World Food Kitchen. Oh my God. Yeah. That's just, they just set up immediately. And there was a new one that I read about, it was more Christian-oriented. It's down in Texas. They brought in collected hundreds of meals. It's the same concept, but it wasn't, I'd never heard of it.
and there's the regular things like the beds thing that we do here, right? With the putting together the
Yeah, for beds, right.
So there's like the regular stuff that's
And as you said,
that World Food Kitchen is just
it is.
because they can get set up anywhere. They have their system.
And they use local people. And they bring in.
All right, so please feel free to continue these conversations. One of the things that, as I was doing some research, I recognized is that we have a Unitarian church that's actually closer to where we live. We drive quite far to come here because this is our community. But one of the churches that is close to us actually has a mutual aid meeting. And it's not necessarily it doesn't sound like it's a particular mutual aid group. It's more people who are involved in mutual aid in various ways coming together to share how they're doing that work. And then to give each other ideas and work on things together. So that is an idea. I like to come from a service saying, like, what is something we can actionably do, right? Because, we sit up here talking about, like, okay, this is what's going to help, but what is something we can actionably do? And I want to be absolutely clear, too. We are doing a lot of good work in this congregation that is mutual care type of, or mutual aid type of work. So sometimes it's just putting a name to something and recognizing that's what it is, and we can expand because it works, right? We know that it works well, and we know that we can continue to use that structure, right, to provide care to those in our communities. So I want to emphasize a few key points. This is from Dean Spade. But again, I also want to emphasize that a lot of these concepts were not made up by the people who wrote these books. They were taken from a lot of communities. There was a point, I can't remember the statistic, but a lot of the Black communities in the United States had mutual aid societies because, as you well know, right, maybe you don't, Black communities were abandoned by the government, right? They were not given the care or the structural infrastructure that they needed. So they needed to provide their own care, and they did that. It was a very large percentage of Black people that were involved in mutual aid societies within their communities. And many times the government saw them as threats, particularly with the Black Panther Party. They did a lot of mutual aid work, and they were seen as a threat, and basically the FBI got involved and all sorts of things happened. Because again, this is this idea of rebellious culture of care. These are things that, oftentimes the government doesn't want people to be doing. A big concept that Dean Spade emphasizes is solidarity, not charity, right? Again, this is not charity. This is not, I feel bad for you, so I'm doing this for you. It's working together for things that we all need within our community. And then another concept he says is we get more when we demand more. So another part of the mutual aid, yes, is giving people things and working together within the community, but also demanding more from the structures that are supposed to provide these things, right? So there's also a concept of demanding the help or demanding things from the people in power as a group, right? So that can be part of it. Mutual aid could be pulled together for a protest, right? To protest, for a government thing. There was talking about a protest during the time when the mayor of Chicago, I think it was Rahm Emanuel, they were asking for reparations for Black individuals who have been tortured by, I cannot remember his name and I don't even want to speak it. But there were many Black males in particular who were tortured by this particular police. I think he was a detective. And there were a lot of wrongful convictions. And they basically just gathered together in front of the mayor's house and they lit up LED lights that said reparations. And they took a picture and they, of course, very quickly the police responded and moved them. But the idea was to bring attention. So mutual aid groups can also be brought together to bring attention to an issue through protest and civil disobedience. The other thing is working together on purpose. We are being mindful and intentional about what we are doing. There's some dangers and pitfalls, just like anything else. It can become like a deserving hierarchy thing. Some people deserve this more than others, right? Or, the quid pro quo, favorism and paternalism. So mutual aid groups can fall victim to that as well. It's very important. And then the other thing is people co-opting other people's work. A lot of these people who are doing this work are people that are in historically marginalized communities, and so people who are not will come in and say like, I'm going to do this work, and not listen, and not kind of know their place, right? And that can also be a negative thing that happens. So being very aware of who is doing this work and how we are joining them, and how we are being intentional about that, I think is extremely important. So again, please continue the conversations about what you feel like you can add to your community. And also, too, don't fall into the trap that there's nothing we can do within Hinsdale, because there are plenty of people who need support and help, even within relatively rich, right, places. So I think that's also important to remember that wherever your community is, you can find mutual aid groups that are doing good work, and you can join them. And so, like, you can, Google search. Like I said, mine led me to a group at the local Unitarian church. And that's something that we may want to think about doing ourselves, a mutual aid group, where we bring people together who are working on these things. So I just want to kind of start this conversation. I think it's an important one. If we're talking about a rebellious culture of care, I think mutual aid is an important piece of that. And thank you all for attending. It's not too hot, but it's starting to get there. And I hope that you are able to enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. We will now talk about any joys and concerns. So we like to bring thoughts about people that were on our hearts, sadnesses, or things that we're happy about to our congregation. We're going to do it a little bit differently for summer services because we don't want anyone falling or tripping over the cords and things up here. So if you just want to call out your joy or concern, I will repeat it so people on YouTube can hear it, and then Ben will go ahead and put a stone in the shell for you. So any joys and concerns?
Well, I just want to say, the papers that you received that were passed out earlier is a follow-up from last Sunday's service.
Anita is just highlighting that the papers that are being passed out are follow-ups from last Sunday service resources. And I will also, I don't know that I'll print them out, but I'll probably put in news and notes the resources that I use for this service as well, so people can take a look at those. I would like everyone to keep my sister and her husband in their thoughts, please, at this time.
We're glad you're here, Paula.
Julie expressed that she's glad that I'm here. Thank you. I'm glad that I'm here too.
My mom?
Sandy would like us to keep her mom in our thoughts.
Oh, dear.
Ron?
Gene Carvin spoke to him yesterday, and he's had more stories.
Oh, I bet.
Hearing another story. Well, and the number of and that Park Place going under some rehab, and he's doing right. But he doesn't miss you, and give him a call.
Okay. So Ron mentioned Jean, who is one of our members who is currently in rehab. And I know it said in news and notes that he is feeling kind of lonely, so would like phone calls or could call and let him know if you need to visit. What was it?
He's at Park Place.
He's at Park Place. Okay.
Just keep in mind the number of food insecure people that we have in DuPage County.
Yes.
You know, you were mentioning sometimes we don't think there's much we can do in Hinsdale. There are Meals on Wheels provides 2,200 meals per day in DuPage County. And food pantries are also in great need of supplies right now.
So Kim was emphasizing that there is much need in DuPage County, that Meals on Wheels provides 2,200 meals per day within the county, and that there are lots of food pantries, and there's a lot of need right now for those types of things. And many food pantries would be considered mutual aid in the sense of they just, openly take donations and then give them out. They don't, always means test or, have a huge structure. It's more just a spoke or, a central place where people can come together to distribute food. Anything else?
Everybody's heard this before. Don't say, what can I do for you? But be creative and think of ways you can help and then offer them suggestions of ways you can.
Kat emphasized being creative and not necessarily always asking, but figuring out ways that we can help other people. So, and like I said, continuing this conversation past today, I think is very important. It's not just a subject for a service, it's a way of contributing to our communities and living our lives. Right. So we will now extinguish our chalice. You can pull back up now.
We extinguish this flame, but not the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world.
Our closing words are from Lilia Watson, and these are some of my favorite words. When I was in college and involved in a lot of activism, I had a shirt that had this on the back of it, and it says, I'm gonna cry. If you come here to help me, you are wasting your time. If you come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, let us work together.
Oh, that's great. Love that.
Please join us downstairs in the church basement through the door for snacks and coffee and turkey casserole, and check out the mushrooms on your way.
Turkey casserole, did you love it?
But please, I don't think I have to tell you all this, do not eat the mushrooms.
Really? I got one on here. Oh, I can't stand it.
Stand